Okay. We've got Zach on here because we want to talk a little bit about sports. We've kind of always, we've been talking about monuments and we've talking about those kind of things and kind of things that are going on as far as those political kind of things. So we want to maybe step out of that and talk about sports. Unfortunately, politics is also getting involved in sports. We can't just sit down and have a good look at sports. But so Zach, let's kind of start out with you because you're right there in NASCAR Central.
Yeah.
So what are they doing?
NASCAR is coming back. They have multiple races here. We have a full weekend of races on August 16th. So like 4 weeks from now. And then 2 weeks after that, we have more races in Daytona. So everybody wants to come to Daytona, and fans are allowed somewhat. Reporters are allowed, I hear, somewhat. So I actually may be able to cover a race, which I haven't covered a live sporting event since I covered a Stetson Bethune-Cookman baseball game, I think on March 2nd. So that is the last time I actually covered a live sporting event. So it sounds like I might be covering a couple Daytona races here in a few weeks. So fingers crossed.
Now, I'm a big Talladega guy, but for other reasons.
Well, of course you are, but Daytona's better.
Talladaga's faster, greater wrecks too. Come on,
that's true. People come for the wrecks. You'll get them. You'll get plenty of Talladega. Although at Daytona in February, back before everything started to go downhill, there was a pretty bad wreck here. I'm sure you heard about. So we have some bad ones here.
Well, Zach, you bring up a good point that I wanted to ask you about is, you haven't reported on a live event, and tell us kind of what you see maybe is going to be some barriers to doing good reporting now that you have all this going on.
Well, we were just talking about it when I was covering the Daytona 500 in February. And Ryan Newman got into that terrible wreck right at the start-finish line, and nobody in the media center, because we're down there, right? I mean, we are inside pit road, inside the garage area, so no one in the media center, no one in the press box knew what was going on. TV had basically cut out from it because they didn't know what was going on. So I had people texting me asking me what was going on. So I looked at my buddy who I was sitting next to in the media center. I said, let's just walk out to pit road and see what we can see. So we walked out to pit road, and right as we got to pit road, I saw the ambulance come right by me, right across the start-finish line, taking Newman to the hospital. And I shot a video of it and put it on social media, and I was the first person to see that ambulance bring him to the hospital. You're not going to get that now. I mean, you're not going to have that kind of access. You're not going to have that kind of freedom, and it's going to make it more difficult. I mean, even if you're at the track reporting from a race live, after the race, you can't just go down there and talk to the drivers. Like after any race at Daytona, you can walk out to the track and basically talk to any driver you want. You can't do that now. They're going to put them all on Zoom like we're on right now. And it's going to be, it's just going to be structured differently. So with NASCAR especially, which is what I do a lot of, NASCAR is really good about getting you access to drivers. Unlike the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA, you can't get that kind of access. You can get that in NASCAR because you can go out there and talk to them in the garage area. You're not going to get that now, and you're probably not going to get that until next season. So that's probably the biggest difference of reporting on something now as opposed to 4 or 5 months ago.
And I would imagine in the football, baseball, basketball kind of situation, it's great being in person and seeing games. Those are good. But sometimes, I mean, it's even better. You sit home, you watch it on TV, and you get the commentary from these guys who have gone down and talked to the players before the game, can talk to them between innings. You got the reporter in the dugout, and all that's going away, I would assume. And I would assume from a reporter standpoint too, you're also going to not get the off the record comments from people.
You won't, because usually the off the record comments comes from face to face in person. And that's been probably the worst part of this whole thing from my standpoint, reporter standpoint, is because I think I do my best job, and I can do my job best for the future when I can kind of build relationships with people. and talk to them and kind of, be on a first name basis with them and establish trust and, level with them and be genuine. You can't do that over the phone as hard as you try. And you can build a good relationship over the phone, over Zoom or whatnot, but it's just something about being in person, being there, going to a practice and talking to someone afterwards, or, talking to someone in the locker room after the game, or and when I say talking to them, I'm not talking like, X's and O's. I'm talking just having regular conversations, talking, how you been, what so-and-so up to, all that stuff. You can't get that over Zoom. You can't get that over the phone. So yeah, it definitely makes your job a little tougher, just because you kind of lose that face-to-face interaction, which, at least for me, really, really helps down the road when you want to write something.
Building a relationship, basically. You
can't do it. Yeah.
That's how you end up with sources.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right now you don't have any sources. And there's not much to write about right now. But like earlier today, I'll give you a great example. Earlier today, not 3 hours ago, Bethune-Cookman earlier today, their conference, the MEAC, canceled fall sports, and obviously football is the big one for Bethune-Cookman. So football canceled for the MEAC. I needed to talk to a player. And, I haven't seen any of these players because spring football is canceled. So I haven't seen any Bethune-Cookman football players since last November at the Florida Classic. So it's been 9 months since I've seen any of these football players. But because I had built a relationship with someone and knew him, I had his number on my phone. We were friends on Twitter. I reached out to him on Twitter. I said, hey, you got a few minutes? He called me right up. And we talked for 15 minutes. 8 of which were about anything but football, just about normal stuff. But had I not been able to, get to know him last year, over the past few years, I couldn't just call him up. I wouldn't even have that contact information. So then I don't have a player's point of view in my story. But because I knew him and we had a relationship, he trusted me, I trusted him, I just called him up and it was easy. So yeah, it definitely makes it different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have that relationship with Nick Saban?
No, but I love Nick Saban, and I wish I did.
I'm glad I'm here, and I am not outnumbered for the first time. Joe,
did you make me the host? Did you make me the host of this, Tracy?
No, I did not.
I tell this to Jessica all the time. I think Joe is kind of a mix of Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. If you can meld them together, I think that's Joe.
They say you don't like in others what you see in yourself. I'm just saying.
I agree.
All right, back to sports.
I thought that was sports.
Yeah. Well, okay, so baseball. Let's talk about baseball a little bit. 60-game season.
Wait, we're not talking Korean baseball. We're actually talking major. We're talking American baseball.
Joe picked out a bad team for us. That's all I'm saying.
We're already like 22 games behind it. We played 8 weeks.
Well, never say never. We got plenty of season left.
No, it brought back memories of my Atlanta Braves days before 19.
Brings back memories of my Emerson baseball days.
Well, that's true too.
Well, don't forget I'm a Cubs fan, so I've had a lifetime of suffering.
But 60 game schedule.
Yeah.
That's going to be kind of wild, isn't it?
I didn't think at first that I would like it, mainly because I was annoyed at how they got there in the first place, because I think the whole process was just mind-numbing. But the more I think about it and the closer we get, I'm kind of excited for it. I mean, I love baseball. I watch every Red Sox game every night. But most people aren't like me, or pretty much you guys. I know Joe watches every Braves game. I know Tracy watches most Cubs games at some point. But most people don't like watching 162 games. And I think for me, one of the reasons I love college football and I love the NFL is because every game matters. Literally every game matters because it's such a short season, and relative speaking. So 60 games, I think it's a little short for me. But every game is going to matter. Every series is going to matter. If you come out of the gates and you start the season 0-5, 0-7, you're in trouble. Like you can't do that. And inversely, if you start 10-0, you could probably start resting players for the postseason. So So
Yeah.
who knows? But I think I do think from that aspect, it's going to make it like a season we've never seen before.
Let me ask you this, Zach. Do you think there's a possibility it's going to be shut down? I know one player I've talked to that I know, one of the things they've been concerned about is the testing, and the testing has not been getting back fast enough, and the players have been unhappy about that. And you're still seeing people. Do you think, hey, we start this season and then everything shuts down? You think that's a possibility?
Yeah, baseball is going to be interesting because baseball is the first really team sport, I guess, when you have that kind of contact. I know soccer's been back for about a week now, but they're on a bubble. Basketball's in a bubble, but they start after baseball. But yeah, baseball is going to be an interesting case because they're not in a bubble, and they are traveling city to city, and they're going home every night when they're home.
Right.
And presumably they could very well be going out to eat, after games or whatnot. I don't know. Do I think it could be? Sure. Unfortunately, there's nothing, there's no real precedent to draw on here because this has never happened before. So to say that it couldn't be shut down, I think you're kind of fooling yourself because, of course, I think it would take a lot. I mean, I don't think you can shut down just because one player tests positive or a couple players on this team and that team test positive, because let's face it, and you've seen it for a month now as sports return, people are going to test positive. Players are going to test positive. It's a matter of when, not if. So I don't think 1, 2, 3. I think for some reason, and I don't know what it is, but there's going to be a threshold or a limit where the public gets to, or commissioners get to, or teams get to, where say, okay, this is just too many. We have to stop this. I don't know what that is. I don't even know if Major League Baseball knows what that is because there's no precedent. But of course, yeah, it could get shut down. I hope it doesn't. And I think it's going to be difficult. And I think there's going to be a bit of a leash to get to that point. But sure, I mean, I think it's 2020. I thought aliens could come out of the sky right now, and I would keep talking to you guys and act like it wasn't happening. So nothing would surprise me.
And there's probably going to be some kind of cascade effect. And like you're saying, Zach, we don't know when that's going to kick in. But there's a difference between pro sports and college sports and high school sports.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, we've already seen some major league players opt out before the season even starts. The cascade effect may be you might not have a whole lot of people testing positive, but all of a sudden a couple people test positive, and then 4 or 5 players say, I'm out for the year. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not playing any longer. And that just rolls. And then once one league cuts down, just like we saw in March, once one league shuts down, then everybody starts shutting down.
Well, just take this scenario. Let's just say that the Atlanta Braves are, they're 10 games ahead, and all of a sudden there's a massive breakout with their team. I mean, and with everything going on, I mean, you could go from first place to last place quickly if, some of your main stars, which I know Freddie Freeman is one who's had it, but just imagine, like I said, you just all of a sudden one team just gets clobbered with this stuff. It changes the whole scenario. It's extreme baseball is what it is.
There's just a ton of, there's baseball, basketball, NASCAR, golf, everybody who's trying to come back right now is they're just kind of going with it. It could be because, like I said, there's no precedent. No one knows what to do. I think everybody's kind of going in hoping that everything works out. And in certain sports, it has. And NASCAR has been back for 2 months. NASCAR will be fine. I don't think there's really much, worry there about them. Same thing with golf. I mean, golf has social distance built in like NASCAR does. But these team sports, I know soccer came back last week, but even soccer, I mean, you look at the MLS, I think they've had at least 2 clubs already back out and say we can't do this. We've had too many players test positive. So I think baseball's kind of going in here hoping, blind faith, maybe blind, hoping that this works out and these problems don't happen. And maybe they're right. I mean, I've seen plenty of instances where you go into something and you think there's no way this is going to work. This is just impossible. It's too many things can go wrong, but everything works out. And that could happen with baseball, and it could happen with the NBA. You don't know. No one's done this before. I don't know. Do you know anybody from 1918 who was alive during the baseball season who could walk us through the Spanish flu and how that worked out?
I've seen a picture of baseball in that time.
Wearing masks.
People wearing masks.
Yeah, it's eerie to see.
Yeah. Now Mike McGee believes that NHL players, no way are they going to let, coronavirus bring them down. I mean, they're hockey players.
I think the NHL, I think that's going to be those. They don't really care about much. I'm not sure the coronavirus. I mean, they play with skates that could slice your neck open. I'm not sure the virus is going to scare them off.
Yeah, most of them don't have all their teeth. So
yeah.
Well, isn't there a study that if you don't have any teeth, you reduce your risk of getting the coronavirus?
Well, of course. Yeah. They're in good shape.
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead. Do you have something, Joe?
Well, I mean, I think though the other interesting thing in the baseball 60-game season is you're just ripe for what you want to call it upset. Maybe this is like for an underdog.
Sure.
This is an underdog season. I mean, you can
go Marlins.
Yeah, you can have the Marlins can play well for 60 games.
Evidently, they're the number one sports team in Florida.
As we say, before they come back to mean, you can be ahead of the curve. Wow.
Well, it's funny because if you look at last year, where all these teams stood after 60 games, I'm pretty sure the Nationals were below 500 after 60 games. The World Series champions.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, so sure, yeah, that's another aspect I like of it. It gives teams like the Marlins and the Pirates and, teams like that who normally go into seasons and by May, we're over this. But at this point, if you can keep your head above water long enough, I mean, all you have to do is pretty much be a 500 team or close to make a wild card. That's, give or take a couple games. But I think we're going to go into September this year and you're going to have most like what 60% of the league still within striking distance, 70% of the league. That's unheard of in September most years.
Yeah. And how about college football?
Oh, don't bring the conversation down.
Let's say they go ahead and play, but they go to that. You have some of these conferences aren't playing non-conference, which all of them may go to, and then what happens to that secret formula, the secret sauce formula they have behind the closed doors that ends up with Alabama on top, even though they lost 3 games.
What are you talking about?
I just think it's funny because I read up on the virus a lot. I still haven't read where it says it cares about conference and non-conference opponents. So I'm not really sure why that matters at all.
Well, think about this. Florida State and Florida Gators, they're just right up the road from each other.
It's the safest game you could play.
Yeah. And the other thing is, think about who it leaves out. Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Not
Notre
that
Dame.
These teams, which, well, I won't go into that. But I think, but if you're not in a conference, you're really in trouble. And I think the SEC and some others, ACC is one of those as well. I think at the end of this month, they're going to try to make a decision.
They have to.
Yeah.
I mean, players, I can tell you from experience, Bethune-Cookman, and keep in mind, this is an FCS school. Bethune-Cookman players were supposed to report August 1st. Like, that is 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Football camps are set to open.
Yeah.
They're running out of time. I mean, for months and months now, I've heard from college football, we have time. Time's up. I mean,
time's up.
You don't have time anymore. Maybe you can go to a conference only schedule because maybe that buys you a little bit of time because you don't, traditionally you don't start conference play until later in September or October. But time's up. And college football is one that from the beginning, it seemed like it was going to be the one that was going to be really, you didn't know if they were going to play or not. For some reason, I don't know why, but the NFL, I'm confident they're going to play. For some reason, college football is the other end of the spectrum. I don't think they're going to. They seem to, on shaky grounds, and I'm not sure why that is. I guess that's just because they're controlled somewhat by universities, and there's other factors at play. But college football is going to be the next shoe to drop, and I think it just means more. The SEC, maybe they're the last ones to hold out, but I don't know. I have a
it's
bit
the
of a
best
queasy
conference
feeling
anyway,
about
really.
SEC. Of
Right.
course, yeah.
When they talk about, well, you got to play football because that's where they make all their money. But what they're really talking about is that's where they make all their money to pay for the other athletic teams.
For the other athletic.
Yeah.
That's again, just because I cover them, and this is on a very, very low level, but for instance, Bethune-Cookman has 2 college football games a year that makes them money. The homecoming game and the Florida Classic in Orlando against Florida A&M. That game brings in 50,000 people. I read today it brings in millions of dollars for the city of Orlando. All the money that Bethune makes from those games basically keeps all the other athletic departments, all the sports, basically afloat for that calendar year. That's gone this year. Like now what do they do? That's the biggest issue right now. And you think that's that's at a low level like Bethune. Imagine LSU, Alabama, Florida. I mean, what do you do? I mean, LSU football, if you take that away, I don't know how LSU lacrosse or volleyball survives. I don't.
And they got to pay their players too. So, I mean, that's the other thing.
Well, it won't survive because if they shut down football, they're probably just going to shut down all sports.
Well, I think you're already seeing that. Was it Stanford has already canceled 14 varsity sports, which probably not ones that you would.
Yeah, I didn't realize 14 varsity sports existed, so that's a lot. But they
fencing,
fencing and rowing. If football doesn't get played, fencing and rowing probably are done for any school, and that's just and that everybody and I get there's a safety factor to it, an aspect to it, but people who basically get upset that these colleges are worried about the financial and the economic impact. I get it. I mean, this is real world stuff. I mean, if you get rid of this, you're not just canceling college football. You are canceling dozens of sports potentially at these schools. And these are, we're talking scholarships and avenues for these kids to get into school. And it's a trickle down effect that it's going to be bad. And no one's ever seen the fallout from it because it's never happened before. But I don't think people want to see the fallout from it because it could get ugly.
And I wonder how long it will take for some of these sports to come back, if they come back at all.
If at all, it's just like some of these businesses. So a lot of these businesses aren't coming back right now. I walk in downtown DeLand and there's businesses that aren't coming back. It's the same thing with sports. And I know that it seems, businesses and sports seem on a very different level, but they're not because, at programs at these Power 5 schools, a lot of these kids depend on these sports. It's the same thing with high school football. And I understand that the school issue in Florida right now is all the headlines because school starts in less than a month. And are we going to come back? Are we going to do this or that? But if you take away high school football, for example, and you shelve that, a lot of these kids depend on high school football. I talk to them. I know them. I cover them. A lot of these kids depend on having high school football in the fall to go to get them to go to school, to keep them in class, to keep them on top of their game, to get them to college. You take that away, then what do you do? I mean, it's a trickle down effect that could be that's going to get really messy.
Yeah. And of course, that's a whole different conversation on has sports gotten too big and too important,
right,
beyond what it's really worth. But you're pointing out some of the things that are worth it for those things.
As a sports reporter, I don't think sports are too big.
Of course not.
I think they are perfectly big enough.
Yeah. Well,
big enough.
What are you down to now? The fishing report? Is that what you're doing?
It is red snapper season. I know that. Don't ask me anything else, but I know it's red snapper season.
Well, okay, maybe we're kind of getting to the end here with our time, but I think another question as we come back out of this, I mean, obviously some people miss sports. Has really a whole lot of people missed sports? Or is it just us talking because we happen to be sports people and maybe the people listening to this show right now are going, I could care less about sports.
Oh yeah, Ethel
I don't know.
has
I
already
miss
said that.
sports a
Yes.
lot.
Ethel's already said could care less.
Ethel said she cares less about sports, but she loves the two guys on the top of the screen. Sorry,
No,
Zach, you're not on the top. So
no, I'm on the top in my view. I don't know who's on top.
oh, are
in your
you?
view.
Well, I'm going
Wow,
based on
that's a good
Facebook
question.
here.
That's a good question. Hopefully,
Well, I don't know. It's just it's like, because of this virus, you're not going to be able to. And you do whatever you're not going to be able to release new movies in the fall. You're not going to be able to make new TV shows. You're not going to be able to do this and that. And now you're going to take away sports. I'm like, guys, we're going to get to December and January, and our morale is going to be in trouble. Like, we're not going to. It's just like, I personally, whether I was a sports reporter or not, I love the fall. I love the holidays. I love the weather. I love baseball postseason. I love college football. I love the NFL. The fall, I just think it's the best time of year. This fall is I'm not looking forward to it. I think the country right now really misses having things to look forward to, whether it's sports or going out or whatever it may be. Whatever you like, most things. I mean, there's just not much to look forward to right now, unfortunately, for a lot of these things. And I think I think that's going to be a real bummer over the next few months if things don't get better.
Well, families too. Families.
Can't even see anybody.
if you live in Alabama, you do things as a family based around football, and whether going to the games or whether you're going over people's house, or even just talking with people at the water cooler, whatever.
Yeah,
all those things, and I realize you can get crazy with it, but at the same time there's a lot of positives to it as well. And I think you brought out a really good thing I don't think people think about, which is these young people, and it gives them a purpose and a drive, and it gives them a way to go to college. For some kids, I mean, this is their shot. Mm-hmm. And I it really kind of puts things in perspective. Now, here's my question, and this one's going to our retired judge.
Oh.
So let's just say,
I heard he was working like 3 weeks ago. I don't know what retirement means in the judge world.
We never see him anymore. I think he's just got this whole coronavirus scare going so he can go other places, but no, let's just say let's just take Major League Baseball here for a minute. We've talked about the testing. Let's say a player has committed himself to it, he gets COVID. One of the things that I've heard about with COVID is we don't know the long-term effects. Mm-hmm. So let's just say you got a pitcher or whatever, they get it, and now they can't return to baseball because it's affected their body. Or let's just say fans, they're really upset because the only people, the Dolphins are letting in are season ticket holders, in their whatever percentage they might let in. Or, I mean, is there going to be some lawsuits that are going to come out of, going ahead and playing, and maybe even some long-term effects?
There's always lawsuits.
I'm convinced of that. Yes.
We're afflicted with lawsuits. Well, I mean, I think that was one of the hangups with the MLB, agreement was, MLB wants the players to sign a waiver, like we would sign a waiver where we're going in and say we waive, on the back of our ticket, if the foul ball hits us, we've waived it. We understand the possibility of getting hit by a foul ball. Well, they want a waiver, you'll play, but you understand the possibility that you might get the virus if we play. And so they want to get a waiver, but even if you have a waiver, people sue. Yeah. I mean, as far as that's concerned, whether they're successful or not is going to probably depend on something being really negligently done, as opposed to who knew kind of thing.
Do you think some of these players are getting some extra insurance? I mean,
Well,
I don't even know if there is this type of insurance out there. I don't know.
Oh, you can always get insurance. It just costs some money.
I got something in the mail trying to give me life insurance a couple of days ago. I'm sure Major League Baseball players have it.
Jessica put that in there.
They can get insurance, but that's why some of them are opting out. I'm sure why they opt out is they don't want to take the chance of messing up their lungs and that kind of thing. But that it's just a risk, and there'll be lawsuits.
So here's another question for you, Joe. So governors, we see governors have a lot of power in states. Can they shut down completely? Let's just say the governor of Alabama, which this would never happen because they would be impeached by the next day.
Wouldn't happen in Florida either. I know.
No, not in Florida either. But let's just say governor of California says no sports whatsoever. Can they do that with all sports, or is that just limited to like state schools? How does that work?
Oh no, he could, if it's a safety and health issue, he's got the power to take the appropriate steps to protect the citizens. Obviously, it has to be related. I mean, there has to be some kind of nexus there that would allow him to say, this gathering a bunch of fans in the stadium, not going to happen. 22 kids banging into each other, we're not going to allow that to happen because they're going to spread the COVID. So he definitely could do that. Of course, they've kind of, governors like that in California kind of shot themselves in the foot by going out and protesting with everyone else without masks. And so it's hard to come back and say, well, that's okay. The health thing is not a big deal here, but it is a big deal for the kids playing football. I mean, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, but I think it would probably hold up if they really had a big outbreak and they just said, no more gatherings of more than 10 people. So I guess you could still play basketball, but that would be about it.
Well, NASCAR last night had 30,000 people in the stands at Bristol. And I watched that race, and I don't think that is a problem because it's a 120,000 person arena. And I know 30,000 people sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you have a 120,000 person arena. And I think being outdoors, spread out, all the measures in place, it's possible. I mean, like I said, I think the NFL is going to play. There's no doubt in my mind the NFL is going to play. And I tend to think that there's going to be fans in some capacity in the stands, and it may depend on which state you're in, but I do think they're going to be there. It's possible to do, but it's going to be a big undertaking, and it's going to be, I mean, you're going to have, and I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if fans do go to these games in the fall. You're probably going to have to sign some sort of a waiver. I would be surprised if you don't.
The issue for fans in the stands is really not while they're watching the game, because like you're saying, Zach, they can spread out.
Yeah.
You're only putting 30,000 people in a 100,000 seat place or whatever, or 20,000 in a 50,000 seat place. But it's getting in and out, as we all know. If you've ever gone to a stadium and you're just stuck in that long line of people just moving slowly through the gate,
concessions, bathrooms,
all that kind of stuff that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And look, we've at Vero, we have the experience of that getting a little too close, and it can spread like wildfire.
It's going to be a tough balance. I mean, and again, no one really, there's just no experience to draw on. You can't go back and see how this was done. You can't, and hopefully nobody else in the future will have to go back and draw on how it was done in 2020. Hopefully this is it. But this is going to be it's a first for everybody, and from the top down to the bottom. And I think everybody's just kind of going with what they feel right now, and hoping that it works out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, we appreciate you joining us.
Before we go, I did get a text from my dad saying he wants to report that he shot a 78 today and beat both Mike and Nick. So we can add
Finally
that to
some
the
sports news. Finally.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Actually,
Well, it depends on who you are in that text.
Not good news for Mike and Nick.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the old man did it.
The old man did it.
Exactly.
All right.
Well,
Well, Zach, we do appreciate you being with us, though, and joining us, and give Jessica our hello.
Well, I had to bring the beard onto the show since apparently it's outlawed now, according to some people.
listen, this is terrible. This is 2020. I'm not even worthy to wear a beard anymore. This is just where it's gotten to.
Well, Tracy's just trying to keep cool. It's gotten too hot.
It is with a mask. It's pretty hot, but my mask fits a lot better because I have a huge head anyway, but I've got a big brain, so that kind of goes with it.
At least you said it. I don't have to say it. So.
Well, out on Tuesday out here in Texas, we hit 108.
See, it looks like wintertime down here compared to that.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Appreciate you
anyway,
guys having me.
yeah, great
Yep.
seeing you, Zach. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll be back next Thursday with another thrilling topic to talk about.
And if
So-
anybody has any topics, please let us know.
Yeah, we're always welcome to have a topic suggested to us that we'd like to discuss if we know anything about it. Even if we don't know anything about it, we'll pretend that we do.
Oh, and
So I
before we
lived my whole
go,
life.
hold on. I hadn't even said anything. We've got a new grandfather and uncle.
Yeah,
That's true. I am an uncle.
How about that.
I forgot
Uncle
about
Zach.
that.
Uncle Zach. That's
Uncle Zach.
That's
So congratulations to you guys. Congratulations to Andrea and Sammy.
yeah, it's pretty
And,
exciting. They'll be coming home from the hospital tomorrow.
You haven't even gotten to see the kid yet, have you?
Nope, not till tomorrow. Nobody can go in the hospital. Sammy's
I'm
there.
sure Glenda's handling that well. So
No, she's on edge. She's on edge. She's on edge.
yeah.
But we'll see
All right.
you next time.
Thanks again, Zach.
Yeah.